Okay, so I'm just going to review angiosperms, and don't forget angiosperms are the flowering plants. And the way you're going to remember that is Angie is a girl and girls like flowers, okay? So angiosperms are the flowering plants and gymnosperms are the cone plants, like the pine cones and things like that. Okay, so the flowering plant, the reason that a plant produces a flower is for reproduction. Okay, so we have, here's the flower, okay, and the female part of the flower is in the middle, and the male part of the flower, there's usually a couple of them, is usually off to the side. And when you look down at a plant, you'll see the male part of the plant has this kind of dust on him, and that's pollen. Okay, so the female part of the plant is called the pistil. And the pistil is made up of three parts, which is the top part, which is the stigma. This top region, actually, it's usually sort of a little bit ballooned out. And then the style, which is the long part, and then the ovary, which is down at the bottom. So stigma, style, and ovary. Okay, and inside of the ovary are the ovules, which are the eggs. Okay, and this part here is the male part of the plant. It's called the stamen. Okay, and the stamen consists of the anther, which is the top part where the pollen is, and the filament, which is the stick that holds up the anther. Okay, so the pistil is the female part and the stamen is the male part. And the way I remember that is Peggy is the pistil and Stanley is the stamen. And Peggy and Stanley work in conjunction with one another to help fertilize plants. And the way they do that is the flower actually attracts pollinators. So if the flower is a certain color, it'll attract a certain type of pollinator. And that's an evolutionary thing that has happened over many thousands of generations, and yellow flowers attract pollinators that prefer a yellow color. So plants have nectar at the bottom, and pollinators want that nectar. And we'll just say a bumblebee, but it can be a butterfly or any other type of pollinator. So here along comes a bumblebee. Put some stripes on him. And he wants to drink that nectar, so he heads down to the bottom of the flower to get the nectar. And on his way down, he bumps into Peggy and Stanley. And it's inevitable because flowers are kind of a tight little place. So when he bumps into Peggy and Stanley, it doesn't hurt Peggy and Stanley, but a lot of times what he'll do is he'll bump into Stanley and get some of this pollen dust on him. And it's very loosely attached to the anther. So he gets some pollen on him, and then he flies around for a little while, and he visits another flower to get some more nectar. Well, when he visits that flower, he'll inevitably bump into Peggy and Stanley again, and sometimes what happens is a little bit of that pollen that's on him will land on Peggy, okay? And when it lands on the stigma, it actually starts to eat its way through the stigma, because the pollen is sort of like male sperm, and it will make its way down through the style and into the ovary where the ovules are. And when sperm comes in contact with an egg, it gets inside of the egg and fertilizes it, and that's exactly what happens. The ovule down here, which is the egg, the piece of pollen makes its way down and fertilizes the egg, and Peggy gets pregnant. And that's how we produce a new organism. And it's not, you don't make a flower from a flower, but here's what you do. Peggy gets pregnant and she swells, just like most animals. When they get pregnant, their belly swells, and Peggy swells up, and actually she becomes a fruit. And so we have a strawberry. So here's your pregnant Peggy turns into a strawberry. And one of the things that is on fruit or in fruit are seeds. And when those seeds are dispersed by the organisms that eat them, say either they eat the strawberry and swallow the seeds and excrete them later, and those seeds will end up on the ground and end up germinating to make a new plant. Or it could be an apple, same thing. An apple gets eaten, the organism will either eat the seeds or spit out the seeds, and the seeds will inevitably end up in the ground, start a new plant. Okay, so the whole purpose of the flower is for reproduction of the plant.